What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. We love having all you guys here. This is so much value in this room. Like if this place burned down. So this is episode number 300. We're super excited. We've been planning it for a little while here. And I've got, well, my latest co-host and my earliest co-host with me. So I want to see hands here. How many know who this guy is? It's Ryan Spain. His son, first hand up.
Good.
All right, so most of you guys know we got a pretty hardcore crowd. So Ryan, welcome. It's great to have you back on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Ryan, want to really set the foundation for what we have now on Limited Resources as far as content and approach goes. Now, the guy who is currently carrying the reins for that, Luis Scott Vargas. Hi, Luis.
I wasn't even supposed to be here today, but
He had a campaign on social media to trick us.
I thought maybe I was going to get, the Marshall and I together again. But I'm happy to have Luis on stage with us. It's great to have him here.
Luis couldn't help but crash the party.
That's right.
Too. So we've got a lot of stuff lined up for you guys today. It's a relatively short panel, only an hour. We don't like to be constrained by such a short amount of time. But what we thought was that we would go through kind of a mini show here at the beginning, and then after that, we're going to open it up to questions, because that's kind of the killer app here, right? Like, we don't normally get to have all of you guys in the room with us, and we thought it would be awesome to have a chance to let you ask questions and interact and stuff. So when we get to that point, there's a mic over there, and you guys are going to be able to line up and ask us a bunch of questions. But first, I thought we would talk a little bit about how the show got started and like how we got to this point with these two guys. And we're also going to be doing a crack-a-pack in just a minute here. So Ryan, first off, welcome back, man. Like it's so great to have you on the airwaves again.
It has been a long time. I
Are you rusty?
I'm very rusty. Showed up on 241 to say hello, but it's been a very long time since I've recorded an hour of Limited Resources, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I think we should get right to the.
You want to get right into the crack-a-pack?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to get into the crack-a-pack? Any votes? All right. So here's the thing.
We're gonna do something a little different.
A little different this time, Ryan. Why don't you show them what we're up to?
We're gonna do pick a crack-a-pack.
You get to vote.
We have the audience here. Now, initially, we thought about bringing just all the packs we could think of and letting the audience choose from 200 magic sets or whatever. But then I decided, no, let's get real. All right. Here's what we're choosing from. We have Zendikar, the very first, the set that released shortly, or just right after the first Limited Resources. I think Zendikar is underrated. I love Zendikar Limited. I thought that was a refreshing change of pace. And then fan favorite of a lot of people, but this was easily Marshall's and my favorite set to draft when it came out, and it rose to the top for us until Innistrad showed up. So when Innistrad came out, that became the discussion for us. What would we rather draft, Innistrad or Rise of the Eldrazi? So,
and the question is, what would you guys rather draft? What should we open up here? We're going to do it by applause. So you're going to pick one, and this is going to be the vote. So we'll start over there on the side. Zendikar. Rich Hagen loves Zendikar, and so does Ollie. All right. Okay, that makes 3. Rise of the Eldrazi. Okay, and that leaves a lot of people's favorite draft format, Innistrad.
You're the moderator. You tell me.
I think it was Rise of the Eldrazi. Completely unbiased opinion. Let's open up a Rise pack.
Rise of the Eldrazi, and how appropriate on the Battle for Zendikar weekend.
I need a sniff of that too when you.
What's that?
I need a.
Oh yeah, here you want to do the honors?
Thank you.
I don't want to take that.
I hold it up like this when I do it on the show so you guys can hear it. Oh, vintage. So good.
Oh my God.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Louts and Brian Wong. Yeah, it looks like they wouldn't let us have a crack-a-pack without them, or a panel. Welcome, guys.
Marshall, I got that lunch you wanted me to grab for you. Here you go.
John, that was for after the panel. Thanks, though.
That's yours.
All right, everybody, welcome Brian Wong on the end. We pried him from his apartment. He's in public for the first time.
Hey, guys.
And, of course, the Laux bot, John Laux. Welcome, guys. You came just in time for the Crack-A-Pack. So we decided, or I should say, we all decided here to vote on Rise of the Eldrazi. So let's see what we got. All right, our first card. Knight of Cliffhaven. Meh.
It's white. We don't
We'll
first
do
pick white
we'll do
cards
votes on this
unless
too,
they're Gideon.
right? We'll vote on what the first pick is.
Sure. I think
we're narrowing it down. That's
we'll
not
do the
the
narrow
one.
down, and it's certainly
Yeah.
not going to be a white common. I don't
Wild
think.
Heart Invoker.
Better.
We got some meh, and I kind of agree. Halimar Wave Watch. You guys remember this?
Underrated, that thing.
06 leveled up into your win condition.
Yeah, I agree
like
with
how
you,
that
Brian.
works.
I think this one's a little underrated. Maybe not first picking it. Fisher Vent. No.
Yeah.
Stomper Cub.
Not first. We like the Wild Heart Invoker over that.
Yeah. Spawning Breath. No. Oh, here's one. How about Ondu Giant? You guys remember this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Laux, you love Ondu Giant.
5-color Ondu Giant, that's the way.
Yeah. All right, so we have our first possible pick here. We've got an Eldrazi here. It's Hand of Emrakul, which was kind of the meh one. Let's be honest here. Annihilator 1? Cadaver Imp? Lovers of Value? It's okay. All right, here's a removal spell. Narcolepsy.
All right.
All right, we got another one in the maybe pile here. Soul Surge Elemental. You guys even remember what this guy does? It's garbage. That is true, but what does it do?
I barely remember what you do.
You want to read this one, John?
Sure.
He doesn't remember what it does either.
It's a 4-mana star one with first strike, and its power is equal to the number of creatures you control.
I'll let you just keep that one. Yeah, that's
Thank
for
you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
We don't need that. Skittering Invasion is next.
All right.
7 colorless, you get 5 Eldrazi spawn. Nah,
Down
not
on the
really.
wheel if we want it.
Yeah, we could get that back. Crab Umbra? No.
Not the umbrella. Not an umbrella.
Become Shelly.
Yeah,
Brian, does that resolve?
I know, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. All right, and we've got our rare Surikar Spellblade. All right, so we've narrowed it down to 2 cards. We've got Narcolepsy.
I object, Marshall.
I do too, and Ondu Giant. Are these the 2 cards that you think we should have in the pile?
I like that knight, the white common at the front.
Oh, you would take that?
It's looking
Knight
better
of
now.
Cliffhaven?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that card's defensible, yeah.
It
All right.
is a top card in the pack, as it turns out, because it ended up being a pretty weak pack. But I'm still pretty resistant to go for a first pick white card in Rise that's not Gideon.
Now, John, I know that you've made your vote clear. You want Ondu Giant. Luis,
Yeah.
how do you approach this format? What are you looking for?
There aren't very many formats where I'd take a mana ramp spell over a premier removal spell, but I like the Untitled Giant also.
I want to know what you guys think, so let's try this out here. Knight of Cliffhaven.
Blue white levelers, come on, guys.
Ryan, this is where
Blue
you
white
clap.
levelers.
All right, that's not making the cut. Narcolepsy? That is the safe pick. But we've also got Ondu Giant.
I get to keep this one.
That
too?
wasn't close. It's actually that guy right there. That was like a battle cry.
That's the perils of volume-based voting.
1 vote counted slightly louder. Can I have
Yeah, if we want
my
to talk
lunch?
volume-based voting.
Yeah.
Here, John, I'll let you
Don't
tend
send
to
those
that
to the
lunch.
audience.
Yeah.
Anybody
You guys
want a
want some
donut?
donuts? I don't know what to do with these.
You brought them. They're on you now,
I guess,
man.
yeah, we can
Yeah,
give them
I'm
away.
surprised there's still some left. They've been sitting on that podium for a while. This is fun. I missed you guys.
Yeah, this is really fun. Thanks for doing this, John. Really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. All right, so what we thought we'd do here for our first segment, normally we like to stick to the hard-hitting strategic stuff on LR, but this is kind of a milestone. We've got all of you with us, and we wanted to take a minute to look back at the beginnings of limited resources, which of course was Ryan and I starting things out, and we've got a few artifacts to show you as well.
So there was a lot of prehistory before the show actually got on the air. There was a time, where I was working at a company called Surreal with about 100 people, game development studio, and had made acquaintances with Aaron Forsyth and told him that I was going to start a Magic League at Surreal. And he said, "Oh, I'll send you some product." And boy, he sure did. He sent like 6 booster box cases.
That had to be a mistake, right?
I think he just
He didn't like you that much.
He gave the task to somebody else and said that there was 50 people who wanted to play, so they sent.
They scaled accordingly. Sure.
But yeah, there's just this magic bomb dropped on our office.
Do you think they got a return on their investment?
Well, it's really interesting because it's truly like Marshall had fallen out of the game. We were playing poker after hours at our office though, and so as I was setting up these leagues for our team, I was like, well, I have these extra packs. You may as well take 6 packs and join the sealed league, Marshall. And he did, and that's what brought Marshall back into Magic. And so Aaron's offhand, sure, here, have some product, is what brought Marshall back into the game. So, I thought that was amazing. But there were a lot of friends of mine at work and Marshall who were frankly terrible at Limited. It was bad. And I set out to help get them better, and so I started, if we can get to the screen again, the slides up there.
You want me to push a button?
I
usually don't handle the technical aspects of the show.
John.
Okay.
Yeah, John,
I just show up.
It's the usual rules.
Sometimes
Don't you touch anything.
I created a private blog that only 6 people or so had access to, where I wrote entire draft walkthrough articles, pick by pick, explaining all of my choices, and started sharing them with these 6 people. So you can see
He did. It was insane. Hey, look at the date on that, 9/27/08. By the way, I take Silkbind Ferry here, and but at the time I didn't know that, and I had played Magic when I was younger, kind of back in the day, with my best friend right there, Jay Chow, and we battled against each other with horrifically bad decks that we thought were cool, and he actually started playing a few tournaments, but I never did, and so the concept of applying kind of some of the concepts that we were learning from poker and the mentality that you have for that to Magic was really appealing to me because of how deep the game is. And Ryan started opening that door for us with nutsandbolts.blogspot.com back in 08.
That's right. And in fact, so what I'm going to do is by the time this show goes up for limited resources, I will make this blog public, and Marshall will share it out, and anybody who wants to can go and look at the tips I was giving.
I'm going to put this on the LR blog.
And I'm sure I disagree with myself by now, but
but you guys got to. I highly recommend looking at it. Like, this was for Shadowmoor Eventide at the time, so if you're not drafting that, it won't be super relevant to you. But the information that he put out, it was unbelievable, and it in fact was what started leading us down the road, because it felt like a waste. Like, he would write 3,000-word articles on like this pack and explaining like what you should be thinking about and where you should be going. And I was getting so much from it, from Ryan. And of course I was bugging him on the computer, emails, IMs, phone calls, texts every day, just like, hey, what about this card? How does First Strike work? Whatever.
Right.
And, it was early.
And it's funny because you taught me to play Magic.
I did.
Like Jay and Marshall taught me to play, but then Marshall fell out of the game, so then I taught him to play well. That was the
Yeah, we reciprocated a little while later.
You tried at least.
I tried. Yeah. I taught him to play better. How about that?
I just realized we have Luis and John in the same area with me and access to microphones. It's like the worst idea ever.
That's why you're the moderator. Does he have mic cutting power? Can you just
can I mute my own or his mic?
I taught Marshall to love.
That's probably more important.
Thank you, John.
So anyway, I went from it was actually again Marshall was like you should probably just look start making these articles public in some way, and so I started writing articles for puremtgo.com that are in a very similar format. That was going well.
Waiting for
Godot was the name of the column there. Godot was my Magic Online handle because when it's somebody else's priority, it says waiting for username. So is my little joke there.
He's really clever.
Yeah. And which about 0.5% of the time, my opponent would say that's funny. So I entertained 0.5% of my opponents, and then. But it was like, well, at that point, why don't we take this? Because we were also having lots of discussions over poker about Magic. Most of our poker group was Magic players, and so we would talk strategy a lot. And we're like, why don't we just record this basically and see how it goes? Yeah,
and I had been an early listener of podcasts, mainly like tech, like computer podcasts and stuff. Where in 2007, when they were fairly new still, I started listening to them, and I thought, this is great. And the person I listen to a lot, his name is Leo Laporte, and he does a whole lot of tech podcasts and such. And he's a real great about teaching people and about opening up things like that. And so I remember thinking, I could do that. Like, I don't know if it would be good, but I have a computer that is capable of doing this. I'm like one microphone away or whatever. And, Skype and that kind of stuff existed. So I remember thinking, like, I can handle the technical part of it. And I actually pitched it to Ryan that way, like, hey, I'll just take care of all this stuff and you just show up, because he was super busy at the time.
Oh my God! The Marshall basically said, "Hey Ryan, how about instead of 14 hours a week of writing, you call me and we talk for an hour or two." I'm like, "Yeah,
3.
that sounds pretty sweet." So the planning began, and if we can go back to the slide here, I'll show you. So Marshall dug up his original notes on.
Now, are you guys familiar with the concept of a brainstorming session? Nothing's wrong in a brainstorming session. Okay.
Be kind.
You can see that I astutely titled this document "Podcast Ideas."
All right, let's go a little closer here, and I actually helped us out with your terrible handwriting. So, the podcast ideas. This was our list. We had to name it, right? So this was our brainstorm name ideas. We had. Waiting for Godot, just going with my column name or turning it to listening to Godot, but I'm glad we didn't do that, because that would have thwarted the future. Mind control, then this idea of limited resources. That was mine, by the way, mine. I found that. And Alpha Beta Limited, that was Marshall's. That was like second place, but it was a little too subtle, maybe. Thought hemorrhage, train of thought.
Truly timeless names.
Yeah, and controlled instincts. So you can see that we easily chose the best name of that lot.
The reason why we started off with the other ones, though, was that a lot of my reasoning for wanting to do the show was to get your name out there, right? We had heard, because Ryan wanted to work at Wizards of the Coast. It was like
I'd been
dream.
in the game industry for about 10 years.
But he was a Magic
like,
player, and a Magic
it'd
enthusiast.
be cool
and
to
Magic
get into
was his
Wizards.
thing. Yeah,
and I just knew we had to be part of the I had to be part of the community to.
Yeah. And he had the
help make
chops,
that happen.
he was playing on Magic Online, and he was already designing games and had designed his own cards and thought about Magic from a game designer's standpoint. And that helped him teach me a lot when we first started, but nobody else saw it. And it was like, if you were a good Magic player and you put up some results and then you wrote some things, you could get some exposure. And even, the people in R&D are very in touch with the community. I mean, much more so than basically any other company. And so, part of the impetus behind the thing was like, well, let's get your ideas and your stuff out there. And that's why, when we started it, and you'll see some of this in the brainstorming as well, is it's kind of revolving around Ryan. And especially when we started, it was very much teacher-student role as well. I mean,
You had a long way to
I was
go at that
green,
point.
yeah. And so it was me asking him questions. And the basic idea for the show was, I'm you, and I get to sit and talk with somebody who knows their stuff, so I'm going to ask the questions that we all want to know. And so that's why you see some of those. But yeah, if we would have gone with those names, it would have been awkward after you left.
It really would have. But I do want to say, while wizard attention was part of the motivation, ultimately it's always been about the love of the game and the love of teaching people to be better at it, and just feeling like we were doing it anyway because we loved it. We were talking about it constantly. We just wanted to hit the record button.
Exactly.
And then so.
Well, I mean, you guys can see exactly what I was thinking here, so we can just go on to the next.
Yeah, no, so these are Marshall's initial thoughts about things to consider with regard to this podcast. So weekly, bi-weekly, we went with weekly, and certainly a consistent weekly schedule is part of the show's success. Live in person, Skype also, that decision was part of our success, because I don't think we could have kept it up weekly if we tried to meet up every
No,
day.
I mean, Ryan only lives like 8 miles from me, but you guys know how it is. And, I was working full time. You get off work and you got to schedule everything, and,
I got 2 young kids.
and yeah, it's just like it ends up being a
Smells,
mess.
it's just
Oh, yeah.
the whole thing.
Thank you, John.
The donuts everywhere.
Yeah. Crumbs.
The crumbs.
Mics. We went with
mandatory
mics.
to me.
We decided to use mics. That was the
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I wrote that more as like a reminder to buy them. I don't know what I was thinking. But.
As I said, it shows that Marshall has been audio minded from the beginning. Like, you've always cared about the audio quality of the show.
Yeah,
So
that was something that was important to us, because I listened to some of the podcasts that were out at the time and I couldn't hear them.
I don't know
Here's
what that
another
means.
critical point that we knocked out real early.
Yeah, we decided simple is
Simple. Yes.
This is an interesting one. We did make a decision on whether we were
Yeah.
going to, because we do, you come to our poker game and it's not a PG experience. But we really wanted to make sure that we weren't alienating any listeners, especially younger listeners, through language use, and I think that's been...
Yeah, we just wanted the show, like the ideal podcast in our mind was open to as many people as humanly possible. And that meant age, gender, anything. We want it to be that if you are looking to get better and you want to come hang out with us once a week, that there's not going to be any barriers for that. And frankly, swearing is one, right? I mean, if you've got a young kid who's learning magic and wants to get better, you're probably going to be like, yeah, these guys aren't really the role models, and they're not really the guys we want you to listen to. So we decided to...
Oh, yeah, and I keep forgetting that our listeners on the podcast aren't seeing the visuals, so I should say what's up there. And that says, the note says, swearing, explicit. Yeah, so.
That was the hardest part of the show for me, honestly.
Yeah, you're a potty mouth.
Reining that
Jeez.
in.
Limited resources after dark.
Yeah.
No.
Uh-oh, I think he's just spawned something. Linked to Pure or Waiting for Godot, like that was just thinking about what its connection to the work we were already doing was. And this was like, how are we framing it? Noob, expert?
You couldn't read my writing, right?
Yeah.
That's what those question marks are?
No, it was something like a sidekick main guy or something like that.
Yeah, that's
which
what it
is
was.
Clearly where we ended up, right?
Yeah, well, it actually is.
Sidekick row over here.
Well, look, it's true though.
It's true though.
Well, what you want to do for these type of shows is you want to have a format, and some of them are two relatively equal parties that are interacting. You see this on sports shows all the time, that kind of stuff. But then sometimes you do have a main host for like a radio show that you'll listen to, in the morning or whatever, and they'll have a sidekick or two that kind of throw things in every once in a while and kind of push the show along. And so we did actually have to make that decision when we came in, and I think it was pretty clear, though, that we wanted it to be focused on you.
Yeah, but you did all the talking.
I did a fair... I mean, I was hosting it.
Yeah, you're good at it. That's it all worked out. Let's just say that. More just thoughts, references, just question marks about what. This is my favorite, though. How long? 30 minutes, 60 minutes, doesn't matter.
What do you think we decided?
I went back to our archives to figure out how we structured hour-long shows, and I couldn't find one. So,
No.
Yeah.
And this was a really important decision, too, because we didn't know exactly how much we'd have to say about this stuff, though we figured we weren't going to be short. and it turns out we're not. We actually have a lot to say, even just in a week time, with all of our hosts. But the question was, what's the most consumable chunk, for somebody? Do they want to pop in, get a half an hour of just sort of the hard-hitting stuff, and then just get out? Or are people mowing the lawn, doing the dishes, driving to work, and they just want as much as they'll get? And, I've checked in with you guys from time to time throughout the course of the podcast and said, like, these set reviews are getting pretty long. The regular shows are long. I disagree, and they do too. Every time I've asked, everybody has said, no, we want more. Like, can you do another show during the week and make it like longer than the other? It's just like, okay. They told us what they want. And,
what do you think the average length of a show is, where you started out by saying, we're going to have a short show today? Like an hour and a half?
Definitely longer than average. That's the main thing.
Probably an hour.
I don't think the little clock on my Skype has ever been less than 2 hours at any show.
But we talk before and after, too.
No, we do, and that's all part of it. I mean, I certainly budget my time for that. But when Ryan said, I don't remember the last time I did an hour of LR, it's like, I don't either.
All right, and then this one was topic ideas. I'm not going to go one by one here. We're just going to switch to legible. So we had, you can see, and the listeners maybe will throw this up, but new card discussion, archetype discussion, strategy.
Not too thin describes Marshall, right?
Right. I don't even know what that about.
Sorry, John, I beat you to the punch that time.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, but when I was transcribing it, I'm like, oh, John and Brian are going to fight over this one.
Actually, all three of us were salivating over it.
Color discussion, underrated cards, secret tips, looting in M10. We did do a looting show really early on.
That was the first one I ever listened to.
Oh,
the
yeah?
first Limited Resources was you guys blabbering about looting for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, we were really passionate about looting.
Wait,
There's a lot of lessons to be learned from looting, John.
There
You
really
should
is.
re-listen.
Is it right to, Marshall, is it right to loot if you have your second best card in your hand?
So the number one that we have here, you can see I put a star next to it. New card discussion, which eventually became set review shows, which are kind of the bread and butter for the show now as far as listenership goes. Glad we
Magic
hit on
Online
that.
versus Live, signals, sticking to a game plan. I think that was great because basically that's a recent excellent episode from Luis on having a plan. You know,
He says that every episode.
Well, it's
Well, it's the number one most important thing if you want to get better at Magic.
Right.
So that's the only reason.
Marshall being not too thin.
We already covered that.
Well, it's up there. It was next.
There's
on
a
the
lot to
list.
cover there.
Misunderstood card.
Somebody give me one of those donuts.
Funny life counter. Just talking. Okay, because Marshall was making custom life counters out of Magic cards at the time. Why is X bad? I think that just meant like any
Yeah,
looking at
that
things from a
actually
negative
ended up being, like, I think Brian finally filled in that with quadrant theory. Discuss, like, being able to quantify and actually say why a card isn't good or bad. I mean, it's pretty easy, I think, for a lot of people to look at a card and just be like, that card's bad.
Yeah.
And they're probably right, but it's really important to know why so that you can know when it would be good. And that was what we were going to try to hit on that. And I think Brian really brought that to the table. It took two hosts, but we finally came full circle on that bullet
The way
point.
Brian ended up framing that, besides quadrant theory, that I really liked was that a card should have a job. Like the have a job concept that Brian brought was great, and I think that speaks to the why is X bad, because it's not doing an important job in your deck. And then nuts and bolts discussion, which is basically a description of limited resources in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that was the notes broken down there, and we just decided, all right, we got some ideas sketched out, we got a name, we got some microphones. Let's talk. And
There was a cool new set called Zendikar coming out.
Yeah.
And we jumped in there, and I mean, I do look back at that as very fortunate, though. I mean, as you guys know, Zendikar, was really a sharp spike for Magic, and we've all been kind of riding that wave ever since. It was a game changer for sure, and we just got lucky that we happened to start the show at that time.
Yep. Yeah. And then we got.
And that's it. So that's a rough history of the origins of limited resources. Of course, after Ryan transitioned away, we brought John on, then Brian, and now we're on Luis. And I just think it's great to have all you guys here, by the way, all at once. I don't think I've ever been in the same room with all of you.
No, it's never happened. I mean, with
not even
Luis
at the
in
Magic
Colorado,
party.
it's not easy. So
Yeah, and Brian's stuck in his apartment. So
It's hard to fit all of us in a room.
yeah. So what we thought we'd do, though, is open it up to you. Like I said at the beginning, this is all about you guys. You guys took the time to come out and hang out with you. Hopefully you enjoy your sleeves. We always got to bring you guys value. And we'd like to take questions from you and for the rest of the panel here. So if you guys have a question, there's a microphone over there, and you can kind of get lined up, but you guys can't be this shy. Dear God.
nobody has any
There's
questions.
one.
I guess we're
There's
done.
one. All right. So many knees, he says. Yeah, I'm sorry.
A pinata of knees.
Yeah, you can start asking questions. Just get down on the mic there and fire it away.
How do you guys feel about Rolling Thunder being reprinted at Uncommon in Battle for Zendikar?
Luis?
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that on Twitter, I grimaced a little bit. I've cast a lot of Rolling Thunders, and I've gotten a lot of Rolling Thunders cast on me, and I mean, is what it is. It's just gonna end the game so often.
I think it's important to note that in the format it was originally in Tempest, there was tons of good 1-toughness creatures around. If the format doesn't have a lot of small things worth killing, it might just kill one creature or something like that. It's still going to be absurd, but it might not be quite as absurd as it was then.
I honestly have no idea if I can acknowledge this topic.
Fair enough. you stay away. All right, thanks for the question. Hello,
It was
sir.
an official spoiler.
Okay, that's what.
My question's for Mr. Brian Wong.
Oh,
Hi,
hey.
Brian, how's it going? So everybody's got like a first host. They jumped on at one point. I started playing at Theros, and so you were my first host. I liked you a lot. You were pretty cool. And I missed you, man. I missed you. What have you been up to these days? And are you going to come on and do a show sometime soon?
I just need a topic where I think I can knock it out of the park. I haven't been playing as much competitive Magic as I used to, so I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I don't want to come on if I don't think I can kill it. So I'm just waiting for that inspiration of that episode that I think would be perfect for you guys.
I'm surprised you're here then.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man.
Well, I am curious. Who started listening in here when Ryan was the co-host? Oh, yes.
My peeps.
I love all of you. I love you. I love you. What about John? How many Johns do we have in the room here? One, about the same amount. Wow, you are so old, John. Brian Wong?
Love you guys. You guys are the best.
And what about Luis Scott Vargas? Pretty even
Yeah,
after
interesting.
you. Yeah. That was a long time ago. Sir.
So I don't know if Brian broke the cycle or not, but I was just wondering when LSV is going to leave to work at Wizards.
You know, we once had somebody say that we should change the name of the show to Human Resources.
One of the most common questions I get asked from people is like, how do I get into the game industry? And the answer is, I mean, at the time, I assume it's still mostly true, is that you just kind of, if you just go to them with a resume and just say, I want to do this, it's generally not enough. Like, you have to be able to show, like, I've gone the extra mile kind of in my personal life and have something to show for it that makes me kind of unique and have something to offer. And so, I mean, that's kind of part of what Limited Resources does, is it's something you can offer that makes you interesting.
Also, it gives people a chance to hear your opinions and your voice.
Yeah, although it's funny, I would say that in my interview panels at Wizards, 0 people had ever heard an episode of Limited Resources. They might have known it existed, but it was still important because I could call out in the early parts and in the phone interviews that this is something, it demonstrated that I was in. You know?
What about you, Luisa? You're professional, full-on professional Magic player, the only one of the co-hosts. Are you going to be jumping into R&D anytime soon?
I don't think that I'm going to make that transition in the near future, but I mean, I do a ton of work for Wizards. Like, I'm here because I'm working for Wizards this weekend as a member of the coverage team. I write articles for them. So to say I don't work for Wizards isn't entirely accurate. So I think it counts.
you were already there.
The incredibly well-dressed gentleman.
Big fan of the show, obviously. Thanks. So a question that's on everybody's mind. I don't think this has been answered, but Ryan, what team are you? Maybe like a elder, bear on a bike.
Harold.
I'm on Team Rocket.
and real quick, I've never done a Rise of Eldrazi draft. I'm gonna do it at 4:30. What's your favorite archetypes? Which one?
I loved red green ramp. It can be hit and miss because you need that correct combination of ramp and ramp targets, ramp rewards. But it is so pleasing when that strategy pulls off.
You actually need the correct combination of Vent Sentinels and more Vent Sentinels.
Every time I draft that set, I draft 5-color Surreal Memoir, even if I haven't opened one yet, and I just assume, like, one will come. It'll work. It'll be fine.
And I know some people like go through the old archives, and we get emails sometimes of people listening through from the beginning, and that's awesome. But I know, like, those people, and maybe those who were there from the beginning know that I was the Vent Sentinel champion at the beginning when the set was coming out, and Marshall was like, "No way, that's not a deck." And I just want to say, I gave you your deck. I called it.
You invented it?
I invented it. That's right.
Luis, how do you like to draft Rise?
I like drafting green ramp, so I don't really care what the second color or third or fourth or fifth color is with that, but if you just draft a bunch of Ondu Giant, Overgrown Battlement, and just giant things, you end up working out pretty well.
I like the Grixis control. It's a format that revolves around just making one huge threat, so having the access to the most removal just answers to just Ulamog's Crusher or something like that. That gets the job done.
Certainly, that's a key to the format, is understanding that, as we called it, battle cruiser magic. You're building up to these massive things. You got to have removal for the big things and save your removal for the big things, or you're going to lose to the big things.
Another nice T-shirt here, Mr. Simic.
I have to represent the Combine. It's awesome to have all of you here together. And actually, my question is something that's been.
Maybe you can have a different question.
Big magic. So it's something that's been talked about a bit before, but the differing value of different color archetypes, because Wizards is sort of seeding uncommons in different two color combos to sort of have an archetype around them. I just wanted to get sort of everybody's opinion on what's the sort of game design value of having those archetypes be of differing strength. Because you can always say, oh, the red-white deck in this format isn't as good as something else. Is that any different from just having one color be stronger than, say, having black be stronger in like Torment or something?
Ryan?
I think color balance is a real challenge of development. We actually put a lot of work into the color balance of Sealed, because Sealed is not self-correcting. If you remember back in the Zendikar days, the swamps and the mountains ran out at every PTQ, whereas draft at least is self-correcting, so if you err a little bit there, the community figures it out, and then it starts to become a question of, oh, is this overdrafted? And that's been talked about on the show a lot. I think if you asked Eric Lauer that question, he would I think he wants everything to be balanced and awesome out of the door, but there are deadlines, and you get it as close as you can and count on the self-correction of draft to take care of the rest.
John, do you have a take on that? You're a game designer.
Yeah, I mean, the two color cards, when you get them, they give you they're a little tiny instruction booklet. It's just like, if you're in these colors, this card's going to work really well with you, and it pushes you in a direction. And then it just feels really good when, like, you get one of those later than usual, and it goes in your deck, and you're just like, oh, this feels awesome. And that's so much harder to do, especially in, like an artifact-based set with a lot of colorless stuff. Like, you're picking all that stuff up. I remember, like, I can't think of the example right now, but sometimes you're playing an archetype, and all the cards that are just great in your archetype are still good in other people's archetypes, and so you just end up, like, feeling like your deck never quite comes together because, people are picking up just the good cards anyway. So those two color cards are a nice little present.
We definitely want the two color cards to be the reward cards of a set. That you're not. The perfect place, and I think Origins did this pretty well, is that you're not first picking them, but they either dictate your second color or reward you for being in those colors when you get a first pick quality card, 7th or whatever.
Thanks for the question. Come up here. Simic guy? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Hello, sir.
Hi, guys. So I play a lot of Two-Headed Giant. It's primarily how I experience the pre-releases. And a question I've always struggled with when deck building is, what should our plan be with respect to the pacing? I actually read an article, I think by Brian, a while ago that advocated sort of a slower deck and use all your bombs, because with the sealed format, you've got 2 decks to work with. But lately I've been thinking faster decks seem to be doing pretty well. I wonder what you guys' thoughts were on that topic.
Brian, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, mostly when I'm dividing the colors, I like to make sure that both colors have stuff to do early, whether or not it's aggressive or not. You at least need to make sure you can keep up, defensive speed or whatnot. So like, if you build like one deck that doesn't have anything to do in the first 3 turns, you're just going to be hamstrung against a fast team. That's what I'd say.
I almost always build a deck that I love inevitability, and so I build a deck that just like, if the game goes long, I'm probably going to win, and every card I'm drawing is probably a little better than yours, but nobody punishes me on that more than Brian Wong. Oh my God. In a draft, he gets in my head. I don't know what he does.
He's always in your head. He never left.
Yeah.
Luis, do you play much Two-Headed Giant? I know it's not a Pro Tour format at this point.
I actually did play Two-Headed Giant Pro Tour, but
it's a while ago now.
It was. No, but I actually played Two-Headed Giant at the last pre-release, and I tend to play it at most pre-releases. I do lean towards building the slower decks. Part of that is just what I like to do. But I've found that given that if both players are focused on stopping the other team from killing you, you can usually drag it out to the late game one way or the other. And given that, I like having, like John said, inevitability.
Yeah, unblockable land walk is amazing in Two-Headed Giant. You just want to make sure you have the cards that if it stalls out, which it frequently does, you have the thing that's getting through.
Yeah, Two-Headed Giant's always a tough one for us on the show because it's like, it's a format that people play, it's clearly important, but it only comes up every once in a while, and it doesn't get played at the high levels, like for somebody who's preparing for a PPTQ or an RPTQ or a GP. So it's like, do we dedicate a whole show to it? We did, but we don't do it too often. So it's always a tricky one for us to tackle. Thanks for the question. Yeah, come up here.
Come this way here.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I was wondering, what is your guys'
Take
favorite
this.
limited format? Like which
Triple Innistrad.
Oh.
Triple Innistrad. 3 of those, I'm set up. You want? I'll do it right now. Like if you. No. Okay.
Am I allowed to say backdraft?
Yes, sure.
Oh, man, I love backdraft. Cube backdraft is awesome. But if we're not backdrafting, grab bag is sweet. These are kind of like non-answers, but I don't know.
John's been accused of backdrafting when he wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it is an answer, because what it's saying is that you are very rules and structure driven, as opposed to the specific cards involved, which is totally fair.
What's your favorite, Ryan?
Cube.
Cube?
Yeah.
Powered or not?
Powered in the right amount. Like, I don't want all powered cube all the time, but the haymakers of powered cube are super fun.
Luis?
Triple Innistrad, I think, for the like real Magic formats of like booster packs that are printed. I love Cube too, and like Ryan said, I like a ratio of probably about 3-to-1 unpowered versus powered. If I was going to do 4 cube drafts, I'd probably do 3 unpowered and a powered.
B. Wong, what do you like, buddy?
My favorite format is grab bag, which I think should just be called Magic, and everything else should be named. But as far as blocks go, I really liked Onslaught block, because the introduction of Morph just made knowing the whole format and understanding how it worked so crucial, and just playing that guessing game of Morph was really fun for me.
Yeah, it's pretty fun when you're guessing how many Sparks Mist they were going to cast.
Well, not to mention Magic Origins is one of my favorites. Sorry, this is a Wizard-sponsored panel, right?
Thank you, John.
Trying to
Thank you
toe
for
the
that.
line.
You're excited about Battle for Zendikar. John.
Oh, that is going to be my favorite one. When it drops in
Thank
time.
you, John.
Thank you.
We appreciate
How's
it.
that chair holding up, Marshall?
You can come over. Rock steady, thanks.
My
Hello,
question
sir.
is for
How are you?
Marshall. My question is for Marshall. Can you? I'd just like to know. I wanted to know for a long time. Which of your 4 regular co-hosts do you think did the second best ever sign-off?
Reddit voted on this once, and I just want to say that I got the most votes.
He did.
It was 12 to 11, Brian.
I mean,
Not
I
that
think
I've looked recently.
if I had to choose, it would be John. He's the one who invented the sign-off, mainly out of selfish, attention-based reasons. Like, I mean,
do you think I'm here?
all I did was like sign off the show like we do every week. Like the show has to end at some point, right? And John's like, "Why do you always get to do it?" I'm like, "I don't. You can do it. I don't care." And he's like, "You always get to do it." I'm like, "It's not a big deal or whatever." And then I'd sign off, and then he'd just start talking after. I'm like, "The show's over. What are you doing?"
Yeah, the first one I just surprised you with it. You didn't
Yeah.
know it was coming, and I think I was like, "That's our end step. We'll see you next upkeep."
Yeah,
And then
that's
there's
exactly it.
a pause. Marshall's what?
Yeah, like we don't have a stupid motto that we say, but that was just the very taste. And next thing you know, he's like writing plays and he's doing game shows.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I was going to say, 5-Dropper Zombie, I think, is the best sign-off because it is the thriller of sign-offs. It is the one that said, why do we have to do this in this box thing? I'm going to blow it up and just go nuts with it.
Clearly, you don't value brevity, because that was like a 12-minute sign-off.
Thus the thriller comparison, yes. But I think it fits right in with the LR mold, if you ask me.
All right.
In the red shirt there.
Yeah, kind of a behind-the-scenes question. So the Kickstarter and Patreon, just from a content creator perspective, how does that work for you? Like Patreon, the tools you're looking at, and that.
Yeah, I mean, those things have been absolute blessings, right? I quit my corporate job to try to do this stuff more full time, and it turns out that's really difficult to do. You don't have the steady income stream that you normally would if you're working, like I was working in a corporate job, and your paycheck just kind of shows up, and you go to work, and things happen. But when I quit, I wanted to focus on this stuff, and so that meant I needed to monetize the show in a way that made it so that I wasn't burning my time on this that I should have been doing elsewhere, because I want to be like a productive member of society. And the Kickstarter was the first one, which isn't a great fit for a recurring thing like a podcast. It's okay, like it worked, it was fine. But when Patreon came along, I thought that's the perfect fit. And it's opened up all types of doors for us. It's fantastic. I've been able to upgrade all of our equipment. I was able to afford Luis, which...
Wait, am I supposed to be getting paid for this? Or?
Also, Ryan could probably speak to this better than I can, but Marshall's a weird mix of like hardworking and super lazy. Like, he doesn't just rush into something, right? Like
I am a Magic player.
He's hardworking and deliberate and doesn't change until forced to. Right? Like, yeah, you're like, it's funny. Like, so my role on the show now is like to send Marshall emails full of suggestions and ideas, and you should have done this and you should do this, and to watch him mostly not do any of it, and then handpick the few that he likes. But Marshall is he likes.
Well, I think that it's easy to fall into the trap of overdoing things sometimes. And I like where the show's at. I think it's serving the purpose that we originally had for it, which was to elevate the skill level of the people who listen to it. And I operate under the assumption that the people who listen are there for that reason, right? I mean, if you're not listening for Luis's witty puns or for the sign-offs, you want to get better at Magic. Boo. Next question.
Last question.
Last question?
Yeah, we're going to have to get
okay.
one
So
more here.
last question, guy with the awesome beard.
Thank you.
That is. Yes.
So, thinking about Origins for a second, how important do you think that compelling build around the uncommons are to make a draft set really likable to be played multiple times?
Yeah, that is interesting. That's something that we talk about on the set reviews a lot. He's asking, of course, about build around me uncommons. The cards that after you feel out the format, for like Luis after the Pro Tour is over and, comes home and like, I might want to do some draft videos or just draft for fun. But you've kind of explored the archetypes that are there. You kind of feel like, I know what these two color pairs do. And now you want to start going deep, maybe burning a few tickets on Magic Online or, a few booster packs. And you're willing to do something for more fun. And they're hit or miss. I think that those have to be the hardest things to design, or one of the hardest, because they're basically limited only. They rarely make it to constructed. And if they're too good, then they just become these first picks and these things that everybody wants, and that's not what their role is supposed to be. But if they're even a little bit too bad, then you're just so much better off just drafting a creature or something else instead. That finding that balance is very, very difficult. I mean, I think in Origins, mainly miss. Like, there's none of them that really like draw me in and make me want to do it. But like, if you go back just a couple of sets to cons, there were. I mean, there were times when I just drafted that the whole time. And it was viable. Secret plans, that type of deck, you could draft those cards and you could win with them as well. And I just think like the difference between like a secret plans and, something from Origins that was
Gear
like
per Aether Grid.
Yeah, Aether Grid. Good example, right? Like that card, when I first read it, I thought this is going to be great. Like I'm going to have all these artifacts and I'm going to be pinging stuff and I'm going to make it work. But it turns out it's not quite there. And that's enough to basically just wipe it off the radar for me. So, every time a set comes out, we look for these in the early part of the set review as kind of earmarking them as possible. And then down the line, we kind of keep an eye on them as they go. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to hit.
Yeah. All right, we need to go cut to the screen again, because the last two question askers come up here for a second. You get, or sorry, you I have. You take one of these. And there. So as
what are
I was,
those? What are you doing?
I know. I'm going to explain.
Can I have one
so
of those?
As we were putting this show together, we were looking at various numbers. First of all, the fact that this is number 300, total coincidence. We wanted to do PAX Panel Live LR, and we did the math, and it was like, oh, what do you know? It's a milestone show. How cool!
Yeah, we definitely didn't rush an episode out on Monday to make this 300.
It's true. If you look at the like the next release window is 300. Yes. And so then I was also curious, like how many sets has Limited Resources reviewed? And I counted Zendikar forward, and Limited Resources has done 24 set reviews. If you count Zendikar being, it was a little loose. At that point, we were doing it across multiple shows when we felt like it. But 24 is a very specific number for Magic. It is, in fact, a draft pod's worth of boosters, a grab bag's worth of boosters. So,
Brian Wong.
What we're going to do is, after this panel, 6 Limited Resources co-hosts and friends of Limited Resources are going to draft with 2 of the people who ask questions here, with 1 of every pack that Limited Resources has ever reviewed. And if you asked a question and you don't have from now until 4 o'clock available, maybe give the card I gave you to somebody else nearby and give them a chance. But if you're available,
didn't see any cards move there.
If you're available, come up and get a pen. This is going to be a multiple choice Limited Resources quiz, and the tiebreaker is going to be speed. So you may want to come up here in front of the screen.
Come on, guy with the shirt.
I'm going to risk it. Oh. Got one? Anybody need a pen? Anybody else?
Yeah, do it.
Sit
down there.
We'll give it a second. So there's going to be 6 questions, because we have 6 years for 6 questions of Limited Resources, and bring them right here when you've finished your.
How does it going to work? So the first person that turns it in, what if they're all wrong?
The highest scores will get the spots.
And the
if there's a
tiebreaker
tie, it's whoever's gets it up here first. And all 6 questions are going to come up at once.
Should they write their name on it, or?
Yeah, there's a spot for the name. They
Okay.
can fill that out now. I think you know that. And then
if you get that wrong, you don't get the draft.
And I'm going to distract you guys by reading the questions out loud for the listening audience. Okay, here we go.
So all the questions are going up at once here.
At once.
And everybody with a card has to answer them.
For reference, I got a 5 out of 6.
There you go. Here we go. What is the name of Ryan's dog? Booster, Rocket, Honey, or Nubbins? Who made the first guest appearance on Limited Resources? Kenji, Joe Bono, Usman, or Patrick Chapin? Who named Elmer during a Limited Resources guest appearance? Steve Sadin, Gabe Carlton Barnes, Patrick Chapin, or Rich Hagan? John missed his first scheduled appearance on Limited Resources because he slept through it, he got in a fender bender on his way home to record, he wanted to play hard to get, he forgot about it, and Marshall couldn't reach him.
You got one. You got two there.
What
Put 'em in
concept?
I'll read the next one,
Okay,
right?
you do
What
it.
concept did Brian introduce to Limited Resources in his very first appearance? The vanilla test, quadrant theory, BCSM, best case scenario mentality, or don't be Roddy. And the last question is, what mascot did Luis introduce to Limited Resources? Shelly the Crab? Marshall the Ape? Harold the Bear? I like how there's just one that's not even on here. Ethel the Aardvark.
Ethel the Aardvark.
Oh, Ethel, sorry.
I'm sure some people in this room know what that's about.
I have no idea what that's about. All right, so that's all of them. How many do you have up there so far, guys?
We have 7.
How many were given out, Rye?
8.
There were 8
here's
given
number
out?
8.
Well, I hope you got them all right, dude, because you are last.
All right.
I went 6 for 6, by the way. I did.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm sure the audience will tell us. So, what is the name of Ryan's dog?
Rocket.
Rocket, yes. B. Who made the first guest appearance on Limited
Who
Resources?
was it? Do you guys know? Who said Chapin over here?
It was
Oh,
Patrick.
he had a card, too. It was Chapin.
It was Chapin. That was a huge get for us. It was like episode number 24. We
Yep.
got Patrick on. Who named Elmer? Steve Sadin.
Correct.
Named Elmer.
Steve Sadin.
John missed his first episode because slept through it.
He was watching Netflix.
Yeah, I needed beauty rest. I don't know.
Maybe playing hard to get was more accurate than we.
Brian's concept is quadrant theory.
Frequently cited as the best all-time episode of Limited Resources.
Second
it was
only to your
excellent.
sideboarding.
It was excellent. I was blown away. And Luis's mascot is?
I think both of those are acceptable answers.
I'll give
It
Marshall
is-
the 8, but it
but
is
it is Harold.
It is Harold.
Yeah.
All right.
Bear on a
who do we
bicycle.
All right, well, Liam was the first to answer and got all of them right.
have? Liam.
Who? Liam, nice job, dude. 6 for 6.
Phil was the second to answer and got 2 of them right.
Okay.
Michael's the third to answer and got.
Sorry.
Yeah, 5 right. So this is 5.
Fine.
Yeah, that's
Jeff
good.
got 5 right as well.
So this is the first 5.
So we're just looking for a 6 at this
Yeah,
point.
looking for 6.
Unfortunately, Nick did not get 6 right. Unfortunately, Ed also did not get 6 right.
Nope.
Neither did Kelsey, and Chris did not get 6 right. So it looks.
Right.
All right, so read out the names, right?
And so it looks like Michael and Liam are the winners.
Michael and Liam, thank you.
Are you Michael or Liam? Michael has a shirt, a deck box, a playmat, and I just gave him sleeves, so he is decked out over there. You come up
All
here.
right.
You got to hold this up so they can see it on the camera too. You look great.
Dress up for a reason.
Just
Nice.
beautiful. Now, how is this going to work, right?
Just
we're
you two
winding
hang
down
around
here.
after here. I'll explain it after, but basically we're going to do coverage style draft, which is that you draft first and then pick teams after. Where we're going to take Michael and Liam and put them opposite each other in the draft and make sure they're on opposite teams, and we'll randomize the rest. And the winning listeners team, the team of the winning listener gets all the cards.
The winning listener gets all of the cards open, so don't mess up, and hopefully you get a good team. Nice job, guys. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this week on Limited Resources. First, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for standing in line and coming in to hang out with us. We truly appreciate it. It was super fun having you on. I wish I could have you all in my living room, but then I'd have to wear pants, so. And that is going to do it, though. So for Brian Wong, for Luis Scott Vargas, Ryan Spain, and the Lauk Spot, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. We'll see you guys next week.